Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are excited to continue our topic from last time. But before I jump into that, I must say hello to Jamie. How's it going?
Good, good, good. Glad to be here always and glad to be talking more about this topic. It's an
I
interesting
know,
topic.
right? So today we're going to continue examining all the weight loss myths out there that have invited so many unhealthy eating patterns. So as we continue to uncover the truth in hopes of helping anyone struggling and looking for answers. For those listening in for the very first time, last week we covered low calorie diets, intermittent fasting, and if carbs are friend or foe. So if you want to go back and listen to that previous episodes, those are topics that, if they're important to you, would be very vital in your recovery. So let's start out by looking at fat, and we will break it down if fat is friend or foe. So my answer is it depends. And these are some questions that I have to ask myself, and you have to ask yourself. How are you using it? How much of it are you using, and what form is it in? If you are using fat in a balanced way, having healthy fats in your diet is a reasonable choice. Even though fat is 9 calories per gram as opposed to 4 calories per gram for carbs and proteins, it can still fit into your daily regime. Fat does not make you gain weight. Excess calories is what makes you gain weight. For me, healthy fats are salmon, avocados, nuts, seeds, and olive oil. Those are
Mhm.
really, I think, the only fats I can think of that I use, but I make sure to weigh them out. For me, I avoid the saturated and trans fat in my diet, which are usually found in many of the processed foods. Studies show that these are more likely to make people actually gain weight, while upping the intake of the unsaturated fats, like I just mentioned, really has no such connection to weight gain and was even linked to weight loss, specifically those from plant sources. Oftentimes, Jamie will have to endure me eating my pound of salad with a half a cup of raw almonds and a drizzle of balsamic during our lunch meeting, but it fills me up, and so sticking to those healthy fats actually has been a blessing in my diet.
Yeah, so we want to be careful of what people are replacing their fats with, right? We want to make sure that they're like the craze in the 80s and 90s, that you're not replacing fat with refined carbohydrates or added sugar,
The
which is
snack wells, do you remember the snack?
exactly. Yes, which is exactly, worse for your health. Some mistakenly think that since there are less calories per gram in carbs, they'll just stock up on those and eat twice as much. But
Hmm.
of course, that's not how that works. As long as you focus on the quality, there really is no need to fear certain whole food fats. These fats and foods help us to feel satisfied and provide the essential fatty acids our body needs. But there is one little tweak here. I don't wholly agree with fats in the diet, especially added fats. So when, for me, especially having fat cells that have shrunken but never been removed, I never had surgery to remove any of my fat cells or liposuction or anything like that. So when those fat cells are still present in somebody who is formerly overweight or formerly obese, you need to really be very careful with dietary fat. So I don't add typically extra fat to my meals. And if something like a fatty fish or a piece of animal meat that already has fat in it, I typically do not cook with fat. So again, just something for me to keep in mind. There are plenty of ways to water saute and to get the same cooking experience from those foods without adding more oil to the pan. And then for me, I typically don't eat nuts. If I do, they're measured or counted, or I just know how many I need to eat, right? But I can just tell I've been eating them in a certain way, right? Measured or counted for so long. I can usually tell just by looking if that's 10, 12, 14 nuts or not. It sounds specific, but for me, they're very easy to overeat. They're hand to mouth.
Hmm.
So I typically do not mess around with them past that serving size.
Hmm.
The same goes for nut butters. Nut butters are something that I'm very careful with, and I really like to make sure that I do not. I have to measure, and if I measure, that's it. The jar goes back in the pantry, and that's that. I'm not eating out of the jar. I'm not, over scooping just because it can add up so quickly. The same with oils. So
Mhm.
for me, I don't, because I have these fat cells that have never been removed, I don't add extra fat to my meals. Um, if it's a whole food meal, I'm not adding extra fat to it. But again, it's this is something that's different for others, but that's the reason I don't add extra fats is because I like the option of being able to have carbohydrates to satiate me.
Mhm.
So my carbohydrates in my meal, I might have a piece of swordfish and some stir-fried veggies and potato. And I really like having or some rice. I'll have that rice and omit cooking the swordfish with fat
Mhm.
because for me, I'd rather have those calories in something that sticks to me.
Mhm.
Whereas calories from oil or calories from added fat in cooking, it doesn't stick with me like a cup of rice would or a small baked
Mhm.
potato would.
Yeah.
So it's really just for me, satiety is the name of the game. But for others, mouthfeel is the name of the game. That cooking experience and the way that the food looks as it's cooking or after it's cooked, that's the experience. For me, it's satiety. So I think that that really is a guiding force for a lot of people.
And don't you think, like my salmon and swordfish, both of those are high fat fish, they taste fine. They
Yeah,
don't need any added fat. I mean, we always either bake or grill
yeah,
those, so
yeah,
those
and it comes out beautifully. You don't need to do a
oh,
thing, just lemon or
better.
I put some blackening seasoning on it, and it's fine.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
agree with you on that one.
And when you go to a restaurant, you ask them to prepare it without oil or butter, they look at you like you're insane.
I know that then it's too much and I get a stomach ache.
Yeah.
Just way too much. I agree.
I don't order fish at restaurants for that reason.
I know. Why do they have to ruin it? I agree with you. So the next one is so powerful. I'm super excited to address this topic that has tortured me for years and probably most women as well. This myth is that you have to count every single calorie and keep a running total of every morsel that passes your lips. Well, guess what? I have counted no less than 1 billion calories, maybe 10 billion calories. I don't know. But to no surprise, guess what? It has never helped me lose an ounce, and if I did lose an ounce, it came right back and more. So I am done torturing myself in that way. So long, I had little scraps of paper all over my kitchen because I was just terrified that I would miss something. And it had those running totals. And where am I? Did I forget to write something down? I think that calorie counting actually invited so much stress that it increased my cortisol level, making it even harder to lose weight for me, and since it didn't make the pounds just fall off, I had to stop and ask myself, "Why am I doing this? Why am
Right.
I doing this?
Mhm.
No more apps. I'm done with the apps. I'm done with the calculators and panicking. I'm done with panicking that something didn't get added in for my day. And then you're negotiating at the last meal of the day to fit the perfect calorie goal, or the earth is going to spin off its axis and I'm going to burst into tears if the math just doesn't work out appropriately, and then I'm in a panic. I, this is life. I'm not doing it. I am not doing that anymore. No,
Mhm.
no bueno.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and for me, and I'm not labeling anyone else. For me, calorie counting became very disordered very quickly.
Hmm.
I was so consumed with what I consumed or what I was about to consume or how I would consume it or what I would do or how I would prepare it or what back when I was using oil to cook something, if I was using oil to cook it and oh my gosh, I didn't count those calories. And they're like, I would meet with a dietitian or a coach afterwards and they would look at, well, did you cook that particular food in oil or did you put a pat of butter on that? You're not counting those bites, licks, and tastes. And I'm like, I can't. That that is
It's torture.
for me, yeah, and it sounds like for you, it is very, very disordered.
Yeah.
If I am consumed with what I consume, to the good or to the negative, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can't eat that because I don't want to gain weight, or oh my gosh, I can't eat that because I'm so bad if I do. Anything along that spectrum for me is very disordered eating. And
Mhm.
that is not a peaceful brain. That's not a peaceful, calm place to be.
Yes.
Very, very distracted place to be. So
Mhm.
I have to remind myself that again, it can be a very slippery slope, calorie counting. And there's lots of ways to look at how we eat and what we eat that doesn't involve calorie counting.
Mhm.
So again, if we think about what works for most people, um, it's all about it's truly all about um, calorie density and not calorie counting. So when I look at calories, not all calories are created equal, and that is because some calories that I would say keep you fuller longer are the ones with more nutrient density, more
Mhm.
fiber density, more water density. So
Mhm.
those three things that, if you have an apple of 100 calories versus a part of a donut that's 100 calories, you will get a lot fuller from that one apple than you would that one quarter or one half of a donut. Right, and you'd be fuller longer and you'd be more satiated, even though you think it's the donut, it's really just your body craving calories. And when you give those calories to your body with water, fiber, and nutrients attached, your body gets satiated a lot faster and a lot longer, and your body knows what to do with those foods. But when we're living in a world of, calorically dense, nutrient devoid foods, we get to a place where we can't possibly regulate because our bodies are constantly looking for those nutrients, which shows up in the form of cravings.
Mhm.
And in reality, it's not truly Cheetos or Doritos or donuts that we're craving. It's truly nutrients, water, fiber that we're craving. So again, it's just a paradigm shift there. How about you, Paige?
Well, I just was gonna comment, I love what you said that when we're eating the foods that our body knows what to do with.
Hmm.
That's just huge, and then everything just regulates itself, but, yeah, all this is to say that what we eat might be more and a more important question when it comes to calories. The body is usually pretty reliable for sending appropriate signals of when we have had enough food, when we consume the nutrition we were designed to live on. So, the gut recognizes that you've had enough, the stretch receptors in your belly will fill up fast from fiber, water, and lean proteins, and it will let the brain know to release that stop sign signal, and everyone is happy and satisfied. On the contrary, if you have a piece of chocolate cake, the brain never gets that message that you've had enough. In fact, the irony is it's so confused, it actually starts misfiring and gets messages out, keep eating, have more, don't stop, even when you've had plenty of calories. So unfortunately, chocolate cake is not filled with fiber and water. If only that would that would be a different scenario. But for now, in
Yeah.
history, chocolate cake is not filled with fiber and water.
No, no. And one last point that's pretty big when we think about, really what our species has really become accustomed to. Many studies show that self-reporting of calories consumed and calories burned during exercise are really
Mhm,
completely inaccurate based
mhm,
on our own estimates. We are not scientific when it comes to recording. And sometimes even our best efforts, we will forget something, or in our worst efforts, we're not honest about something. So again, it's really all about being aware of what you're eating, staying dialed into your fullness level, slowing down and noticing what that food tastes like, feels like, and your hunger level as you're eating it. And really, this this is possible most easily when we come at it from a place of single ingredient, non-processed foods. So again, this can be done with some processed foods, but it is infinitely harder because the bells and whistles are going off in our head while we're eating, and it's very easy to eat past that satiety point.
mhm.
But with single ingredient, non-processed foods or unprocessed foods, it is much easier to feel our hunger and satiety switch, right?
Right.
Switching from hunger to satiety. It's much easier to feel that and to connect with that.
Mhm. I've even, when you were talking about it's hard for us to measure accurately, I have to wonder how accurate they are on the box of ho-hos. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It,
Yes,
so we're trusting that, trying to
they're not
moderate.
required to report certain percentages of
Hmm.
calories or
Yeah.
certain ingredients. They're not
Yes.
required.
That's exactly what I was just thinking about when you were talking about that. So this leads into the scale dilemma, to weigh or not to weigh. That is the question. I'm going to give my opinion and then I'm going to let Jamie share her thoughts. So here's my take. I used to weigh myself every day, sometimes twice a day. I did this for decades. I had a sheet of paper taped to the wall. I'd make a grid for the year, tape it to the wall, and I don't know what you call that, sticky tack that you tape your pin to the wall. So everything's right there above I have a medical grade scale that you stand on. You can just do the little scale thing. And I recorded my numbers and kept those highly important documents for years. When I was done with that year, I would put it in a journal and keep it, because for some reason I had to know those numbers from, 20 years ago. Totally obsessed with a number on the scale. But guess what? That also never made me lose an ounce. It only made me psychologically tortured on the daily. Plus, your weight can fluctuate so much depending upon water shifts. So, this daily weighing kept me in a constant panic and anxiety about what the number would say. Even before I got out of bed, I was in a total anxiety, twisted up panic over it. It was basically a measure if I was allowed to be happy that day, if I
Mhm.
liked myself that day, or if I was discouraged, even embarrassed about my appearance. That's how big of a hold it had on me. Then, to add to the chaos, I started lifting weights in addition to my cardio. And guess what? I began to gain weight. Even though my pants were fitting better, it was hard for me to mentally be confident it was muscle and not fat. So
Mhm.
one New Year's Day, I'm like, screw it. I'm done and I'm doing the very best I can. There's nothing more than I can do than what I'm doing right now. So it does not matter what the scale says. Now, I'm fully aware when I'm not doing my best. I know when I'm not doing everything I'm supposed to be
Right.
doing. That's another story. But honestly, even when I wasn't doing my best, the number on the scale really wasn't the thing that motivated me to clean up my act. So I can only tell you from personal experience, the day I stopped weighing myself was one of the best decisions of my life. And I have never been happier about that. It was totally the right thing for me. So it was a gift to my mental health. I
Mhm.
literally, a light switch flipped. I can use other measures that are more accurate, such as how my skirts fit, how I feel inside my body, and most importantly, how I feel in my mind, the peace I feel around the habits that I'm doing. That's really the most accurate measure. And if I'm doing the best job possible to take care of myself, I, I've done my job. And
Right.
it needs to stop there. So, what are your thoughts on the scale? Do you want to share your philosophy?
I do not use it. I've not used it in a long time. I use it at doctor's offices if I go there and I get that information and kind of take it back, but I really work hard to make sure that I don't let that determine my worth or value in myself. There was a time when I was training for a competition for fitness and I was
Mhm.
very attached to the number on the scale and it was everything. They weighed you before the competition. It's a very public thing. It was, there were numbers you had to hit and thresholds and all kinds of percentages they wanted you to be in range of. And it was maddening. And it got me to a very disordered place with food and a
Mhm.
very, even more than normal, and a very disordered place with how I managed my intake of food. And so it just was to the point where the scale really became um, best friend, worst enemy. It was an dysfunctional relationship as well. So I had to break up with that with the scale, and it was a lot freer. As a matter of fact,
Good
and I know
word.
that some health experts will say that it's best to weigh yourself, so you have an idea of what your trend is doing, right? If it's going in a positive way or a negative way. I think there's wisdom to that. Um, and I don't disagree with it. It really depends on where you are in your recovery to know if you can do that or not. So I know that I can't do that and be happy and healthy. Um, but I do hope to get to a point in the not so distant future where I can do that, because as I age and as my body continues to change with aging, I want to make sure that, even if my scale is staying the same or taking its time to go down, but my clothes are fitting better, I want to make sure that that's an indication of lean body mass staying
Right.
or going up, which is critical as we age. So, again, could it be something done every 2 weeks or every month? Potentially, but you know yourself. If you know yourself, you'll know what's best for you.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. And science pretty much backs up that weighing yourself is not the main factor in losing weight.
Mhm.
If it gives you anxiety or triggers a spiral or negative thoughts, then ditch the
Sure.
scale and consider it 2 pounds lost.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. The next one we want to tackle the myth of is that you have to basically overdo it at the gym every day. If you get caught in this vicious cycle, and really it truly is a vicious cycle, you may actually find that the scale is not budging. And the reason for that is cortisol. The cortisol
Yeah.
increases from highly metabolic activity. So if you're going out and doing, wind sprints after an aerobics class, after a weightlifting session, that's might be the reason that you're not seeing the scale move. But if you are, being gentle with your movement, in the sense that you're listening to your body, you're prioritizing, especially as you age, prioritizing strength training,
Mhm.
and you're complementing that with some cardiovascular, fitness for your age range and fitness level, that you're at currently. You can always build on it. That's the beauty of it. If we overdo it, our body tells us loud and clear, stop, take a minute, take a breather. But if we're able to keep, just be where we are today, our body will tell us when we can add more. It might be, going up in weight, on the weightlifting. It might be in your duration. It might be in your intensity level. So your body will tell you when you have that in the tank and when it doesn't.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that so much. And I was thinking as you were talking about that, not only overtraining uh with the cortisol that you were talking about, but you get injured,
Yep,
especially as we
very true.
age, women in our demographic. If you don't listen to your body and dial it back to where it needs to be, your body's going to take over for you
Right.
and go, okay, you're not slowing down.
That's
I'll
right.
I'll make you slow down.
That's right.
So
That's right.
yes, the stress on our bodies when we overdo is real
Mhm.
and not in addition to the cortisol making it difficult to lose weight, it can also make you moody and irritable, not to mention increase your appetite. I know my daughter has started lifting weights and she's like, I'm so hungry now. So yeah, you're going to have to compensate a
Mm.
little bit for that because our body's trying to keep us alive. I mean, that's its job, right? The brain is going, okay, we are expending extra energy. We need calories to compensate. So it will
Well,
make
it's also because her metabolism is increasing. So because
totally.
she's building lean mass, and lean mass we know is burns more
Hmm.
calories
Hmm.
than fat mass.
Right. If only we could just do these extreme workouts and we could still survive on a few carrot sticks. That's just not reality. So we just want to get to the place where we are not working against our goals.
Mhm.
When we're calm and gentle, it just all the systems flow a lot easier. And actually, those high cortisol levels can also contribute to inflammation and insulin resistance, both of which can encourage weight gain over time. Ironically, cortisol can even have the opposite effect of significantly decreasing your appetite.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, if that happens, then your metabolism can slow down to conserve calories, which may
yeah.
lead to weight gain as well. So
I never had that problem. I never but you know, it's interesting because I used to think I had this broken metabolism because it was so slow. I actually have recently been educated that my metabolism is actually I have an excellent metabolism, and it's not because of the healing that my body has done necessarily. It's actually just genetically, I have a very robust metabolism because a sign of a robust metabolism is you can build muscle quickly and you also store food well. I thought that was very interesting. I thought a good
Thank
metabolism was
you.
you burn the food. They're like, no, that's not a healthy metabolism. A healthy metabolism is one that builds muscle well and stores food well, because those are two key signs for longevity. I thought that was very interesting and a very good way to flip that around. Uh,
Congratulations.
what that's gotten me though is a very, very easy ability to store body fat, from
Mhm.
anything that I look at that's not a single ingredient food. So again, the biggest problem with overtraining here, is really fatigue. And that can lead
Mhm.
to zero desire to work out. I've been
Right.
there. I've been where,
Mhm.
and now I've gotten much better at listening to my body.
Mhm.
I'm in that phase right now this week where my body's like, nope, we're not gonna jump right back into your fitness routine that you had before you left town for 2 weeks. You have been going
Yeah.
nonstop for weeks, for 3 solid weeks. We're not just jumping right back into the same level of fitness that we had before, and intensity that we had before. So my workouts have been very gentle in the mornings. And I'm just waiting to see what my body tells me. So my body tells me push a little harder, I push, but it's not been telling me that on a consistent level. So I listen to what it says I can do, I do it. I get my heart rate up a few times and I call it a day. And I just choose to gently walk or stretch later in the day to, burn off the stress of the workday. And that's something that I'll do no matter what I do in the mornings. But in the morning, in my typical workout time, I'm very careful, lately with what my body is telling me.
How do you feel mentally?
Oh, good. I feel better. Years ago, I would have been punishing myself over it, but now I'm just like, life's very long, and I don't need to kill myself right now. I need
Jamie,
something
you're
simple.
growing up so well.
I know,
You're being
right?
a big girl,
Amazing,
right?
amazing, amazing, amazing.
I know all of this rings so true. I'm sure there is a correlation, some connection between the food obsession, compulsion, addiction, and exercise obsession, compulsion, addiction,
There
right?
was for me. There was for sure.
I think that is probably not uncommon. I remember one kick I got on that I decided I'm just going to keep exercising and walking till I lose 5 pounds. I'm just going to keep walking and walking and walking and walking. I don't care if I have to walk all day. I'm just going to keep walking and weighing myself. Literally, I thought, okay, I'll walk for a few hours and then I'll weigh myself, walk for a few. It's crazy
That's
making.
yeah,
And I was just so desperate and dumb that I was willing to try anything. I think this was when perimenopause started happening and the weight was coming on. I'm like, what is going on here? And what I was doing before wasn't working. All of a sudden, everything is just totally out of whack. But
yeah.
my plan lasted a couple hours and I was
Good.
tired and had to sit down. The extremes, they just aren't sustainable and they're so mentally painful. And
Yeah.
I hate it when people are suffering. And quite frankly, isn't this why we're doing the podcast? We can't stand it when people are suffering. We understand. We have compassion.
Yeah. And that's why we really want sustainability to be the top of the list. So whatever's sustainable for people for the long term. So that's something that I really, when I think about my journey, I look at what was sustainable. And one of my big reasons that I stayed whole food plant-based for so many years was because it was sustainable for me. And it was
Uh,
something I could do as I aged until I couldn't,
mhm.
until my body's need for and ability to process protein changed, and I had to change my diet and add animal products back in. But again, I'm doing it in a way that's sustainable. So that means that there's not a lot of greasy animal products happening. There has been we had to eat out a few times over the last 3 weeks, and chose to eat out a few times over the last 3 weeks as well. And there were many times that I sent the food back and said, I can't, it's too, or I gave it to my husband, brought it home, gave it to my
Too
husband.
rich.
It was too rich, it was too greasy.
Hmm.
Or I would take a few bites of something and I'd be like, nope, can't do it, too rich. So
Hmm.
again, it's about making it sustainable. Making it sustainable. There were times when my husband would walk back in and he'd open the fridge the next day, he'd be like, oh, I forgot all your leftovers are in here for me. Yes.
Yay. Yay for him.
So, and he doesn't have, for him, he has a wider palate and a more tolerant palate, I guess. I
Hmm.
call it tolerant, but he does. And he,
Iron gut.
yeah, the grease or the richness doesn't bother him.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
for me, I get a couple of bites in and I'm like, I can't do it.
Hmm.
So sustainability is the key. If you can be sustainable with your food choices and with your fitness choices, that's key. So for me, I really love challenging myself when I'm fully fueled and fully, rested, which
Rested.
I'm not. I'm not fully rested this week. But normally when I am fully rested, my body will just take me to the next level, to the next level.
Totally.
I will hit personal records. I will go over my weight limits all the time on lifting, and I really enjoy that process, seeing what my body can do. Um, but again, when it's sustainable, I don't do that when I know that I am pushing against every fiber of my being to do it. I don't do that anymore. There were many years that I did in my
Right.
20s and 30s. I just got up and did it anyway. But as of now, heading into towards my 50s, can't do it. Can't do it
Mhm.
anymore. That's, I think, when I think about sustainability, I think about, self-reflection and self-assessment. And if I have assessed, my ability to have something be sustainable and being, honest with myself about whether or not I can continue at that pace or that level.
It's a maturing into it, I think.
Yes. And for food and for fitness.
Yeah, and I love what you said about I'm tired a little. I'm not up to my same energy, so I'm going to match that. But every single time, this kind of comes back to self-trust too, because I've been that where I've been out of town and it just takes me a minute to get my feet back underneath me and I just don't have the same oomph. But I trust myself to know I'll get back there and just relax, man. Just relax. Because historically, I've always gotten back there, so this time I probably will too.
Right.
So,
Right. Yep. Very true.
so this is all good news and about working out and trusting yourself. So don't forget to switch up your routines every couple months. That's something with working out too that I think helps keep an interest high if that is motivating to you. I work with a trainer every couple months to give me a new routine for the week, and then she turns me loose for the next couple months, making sure I'm comfortable with what I'm doing with each exercise correctly. If she sees me across the gym, I will hear my name yelled out. And if I'm doing something wrong, so that's not embarrassing at all. But actually, I do not mind. I'm able to laugh it off and just,
Yeah, it's what you're paying for, right?
yeah, yeah. And yeah, she's training somebody else, but yelling at me. That I don't mind.
Yeah.
Let them pay for her to do that for me. So it's just a way to make training affordable for me to meet with her once every few months and give me a program. And it's enjoyable because I tend to get bored if I'm doing the same thing and I don't have the bandwidth or the capability to be creative in that area. That's where she's expert and she's good at keeping things balanced and I don't have to think about it. I don't have the skill or know how to do it, so I just let her do it.
Yeah.
But it's very affordable to do it that way. So you're meeting with a trainer, what, 8 times a year or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Versus it doesn't have to be every week, doesn't have to be a couple times a month.
Right.
I actually have, from back in the days that I had my trainer, I have a book of workouts that I printed out every week. And I still
Oh,
have that. I hold that book, that notebook I made is as important to me as all of my documents that I have in a fire safe. I really, because I paid thousands of dollars
right.
to get that advice literally crafted for me. Um, and I hold on to it and refer back to it all the time.
Do you switch it up? Do you switch your
Oh yeah.
routine, workout
My
routine?
body responds very well when I switch my routine.
Mm-hmm. And
To
you
the
don't get bored.
No, to the good or to the bad. Like, so let's say that I switch my routine because I'm tired. Like this week, my body's responding very well. My inflammation's going down. I'm feeling much better. I'm not feeling so run down. And then also when I can take it to the next level and I do something different or I switch my days around, my push and pull days, I'll switch sometimes and I'll do something different with those workouts and my body will respond very well.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's always been like that. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
So this one is our last one, guys. Diets make you lose weight is the myth, and that is wrong. Diets really truly make you gain weight. They set us up for metabolic downregulation, and
Yeah.
that downregulation in our metabolism not only can limit us from losing weight, but it can make it much easier to gain weight and lose lean mass, which makes it way easier to gain weight. So again, if we think about, why diets make us gain weight, it's because they are short-term fixes for long-term problems. And there's really no way for us to get a short-term fix that we can stay with sustainably over the
Yeah.
long term. So when we think about the long-term goal or long-term issue, long-term opportunity or problem, we have to think of a long-term solution. What can we implement for the long term? And willpower is not going to do it. It's just not possible for the
Mhm.
long term.
Yeah, I have been on plenty of diets. Basically, I just jump from one shiny penny to the next, always begging the universe to help me find the magic pill that would make me thin without suffering. I wanted both. I wanted my cake and have it too, basically. I always came close, and they each had components of truth, but never addressed the root cause. And that is, I was food addicted, specifically to sugar. So I know for me, let's put someone with food obsession on restricted calories in an obesogenic world where she is having to fight cues and triggers all day long with 5 kids at home, having to make dinner every night for everyone, pack lunches with Twinkies and Cheetos for kids in a house filled with processed food, and keep a tight calculation on, I'm still on over in the corner writing down my calorie count with every single bite I take. And I remember the moment that I said, I am never going to diet again. And I'm never going to count another calorie. And I'm never going to weigh myself again. And what's so interesting is I literally could hear a voice in my head saying, are you sure that's a good idea? Are you allowed to do that? I remember having that thought specifically. Is that okay that you make that decision on your own? What would it even feel like? But more specifically, I questioned myself, was I even allowed to make that decision? But I was so filled with joy. I get weepy to this day thinking of how much I tortured myself just to be thin. And the irony is, it never even worked. Oh, sure, it worked for a little while, but the weight always came back and more, along with the depression of not being able to keep it off. That was the big one for me because I just thought I'm just so weak and lack of willpower. And that was so demoralizing.
Yeah.
And nothing is more traumatizing than to watch that scale creep up again. And you can't do anything about it. You're literally spinning out of control in this free fall because your body is responding exactly as biology would tell it to respond. That starvation mode kicks in, cravings kick up, and you cannot stop yourself from overeating as you return to these previous habits. It's just so depressing. And I wish I could see the people that were listening right now to see if their heads were nodding up and down, like, yep, been there, done
Mhm.
that, never worked for me either.
No. No. So again, as we mentioned in the last episode, one thing we learned, and it's very true for me, is that when we think about binging, Chef AJ says it best that the only way to stop binging is to stop restricting. And
Mhm.
so what, AJ has done and what she espouses is a restriction-free food plan that is devoid or abstinent of sugar, alcohol, flour, and oils and salt in her case. So again, that really works for her because it allows her to have carte blanche on everything else
Mhm.
within, and she's a vegan, chooses to adopt a vegan lifestyle. So for her, it's very easy as long as she eats without the sugar, oil, flour, alcohol, or salt.
Mhm.
Um, for me, because I've chosen to bring animal products back into my diet, it's a little bit different, but I still don't look at anything as totally off the table anymore. Because I found that when it was a constant battle in my head, or I would go through phases of always wondering when I was going to be faced with that food again, or if it was going to be around me, or if there was a commercial on TV, or if I was going out of the house, if I was going to be barraged with it. It's so much easier just to say, you know what, I can have whatever I want whenever I want, and then just say, I'm not going to eat that because I really feel like crap when I do.
Mhm.
It's way easier for me than trying to resist it. And I spent a long time resisting and resisting and resisting. And all it did was make me more fearful and more resentful. And I just am exhausted by all of it. So again, when we think about restriction, there are some of us at the beginning of our recoveries when we have to restrict certain foods or certain groups of foods, we feel we have to restrict them. And if that's what you feel is right for you at that time, that's a call you have to make. And that's a call that I would encourage you to be accepting of. Accept that that's the call you've made because that's what you need for the time, for
Yeah,
that time.
right.
But also be open to the fact that as you continue in your recovery and as you grow, you may change that tune. And
Mhm.
that's okay. Because the whole point of recovery is to progress and to grow and not to stay sort of stuck with a white knuckle death grip on life.
Oh, very well put. That picture is so vivid because that is what it looks like, that white knuckle death grip. And
Mhm.
I like that philosophy of I can have whatever I want. I just choose not to because, like you said, I know I feel terrible later, and it can also possibly lead to a slippery slope. And I don't like being in that out of control place either. I feel very similar to you in that I know I can have it, but I don't want to pay for the fallout later. So my life is easier to stay, in this lane for
E-
me. That's where I am now.
Exactly.
I love it. So here's the bottom line. If weight is a problem, diets are not the answer. We have to look at the root cause. Obesity is just a side effect of other things going on in your life. If you really want to lose weight and keep it off, consider looking at our program at realfoodrecovery4u.com, where we address the underlying cause of weight gain. We have created a formula where you can achieve a rich, full, beautiful life to pull you away from food obsession and allow you to discover your true authentic self in the most enjoyable way possible.
Yes. All right, we're going to move into some listener questions. So the first listener question, and this is something that I hear all the time, I in our from our members as well. I want to get off sugar, but what do I do when the cravings come? It's really, really hard to navigate. We understand completely, been there. Um, Again, like Paige and I talk about making friends with our, addictive voices or the voices that push us to um, seek those addictive foods or those foods that we eat compulsively. We want to again encourage all of you to have a game plan when those cravings come and to make friends with those cravings instead of looking at them in a very fearful way or negative way or condemning way, to actually be curious. Pull another C out of the hat and be curious about those cravings and where they're coming from and what they're trying to tell you. The
Mhm.
craving could be something emotional, it could be something truly physical. And I know for me, whenever I'm craving chocolate, my magnesium is low. It's very clear. And the minute I supplement my magnesium, those chocolate cravings go away. So,
Mm.
we're never truly craving chocolate, or we're never truly craving sugar. It's usually some either imbalance in our gut or imbalance in our body, or if it's truly um, a craving that is related to food, it could be because there's something processed or some kind of additive sweetener that's in our life that we don't realize. So things to keep in mind biologically and chemically. And then behaviorally is a whole other, you've got a lot of other options. So behaviorally, you have the option of changing your location and of looking at that craving with curiosity and knowing that it's not a it's a feeling, not a fact, and it will pass. and being kind and gentle with yourself instead of condemning.
I love that so much. And especially what you brought up about the addiction is not your enemy. It's just trying to comfort you. It doesn't know consequences. I don't think we talk about that enough in this uh, food obsession world we're
Mhm.
in. So I love what you said. It's not to be feared, it's to be friended
Yeah.
and to say, thank you for trying to comfort me. I'm going to try, texting a friend or
Yeah.
walking
You're truly
outside.
not hungry. Right. There's other
Right. Yeah, very good point. And find out if you really are hungry or not. Thank you. That was great. Last one. How important are support communities when trying to recover from processed food addiction or even dieting? Well, at RFR, we strongly believe in support. When we interviewed Vera Tarman, she had said her number one tip for success was to get into a support group because you can't do it on your own. If you could, you would have done it by now. So it's very helpful to be in a group of like-minded people sharing their experiences, and thus you can feel connected and supported in your efforts. At Real Food Recovery, we have highly trained coaches who help guide you through the process, and we believe you have to focus on recovery first, or you will never, ever be able to lose weight and keep it off. Recovery just has simply got to come first.
That's right. Yeah, very true.
Anything else you want to add
Nope.
before we wrap up?
A good closing point.
Yep. Thanks, guys. We're glad you are here. And if you want to find out more about Real Food Recovery, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. Thanks so much, and we will see you there next time. Bye-bye.